Carrying capacity refers to the number of species or number of individuals of a species or number of humans that a certain ecosystem can support. It's directly related to the amount of resources that are available, resources like food, water, shelter. If we look at the types of resources we use, it varies depending on where we live. Those that live in developed countries like the United States are going to use more resources per person than, say, someone that lives in sub-Saharan Africa. To figure out the carrying capacity of the Earth, the first thing we need to look at is how many people are there today. We currently have almost 7.2 billion people on Earth, and that's growing exponentially. So that leads us to the next question: how many people can the Earth support? Have we already reached our carrying capacity, or can we support our growing population? Some argue that we have already reached and surpassed our carrying capacity. Well, how is that possible if we have 7.2 billion people and we're able to live day to day? Well, the evidence that that has happened is that our air and water quality has been degraded. Yes, we have water resources, they are unevenly distributed, and we are seeing more and more pollution, so the water we have is not usable. Same with air quality. We see more and more children that are born with asthma or develop asthma at a young age because of our poor air quality and air pollution. The second thing is a decrease in arable land. Arable means that it can be cultivated, you can plant crops and grow them into food. We're seeing a decrease in this land for a couple of reasons. One is that we can't create arable land. It depends on the climate of the region, how much water is available, the soil quality, and those are things that we can't change. We cannot create arable land. The second is because we are destroying or degrading the arable land that we do have. We are overgrazing, turning grasslands into deserts, and that can no longer be used to grow crops. We are developing, our urban areas are spreading, so we have more people, but we're spreading onto that land that could be used for crops. And as I mentioned before, the impacts are not created equally. If you live in the United States, your impacts are not going to be the same as someone in Southeast Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa. We have less developed countries that make up more of the world's population, but use a smaller percentage of the resources. And so as a result, they're also producing less of the world's waste. Whereas our more economically developed countries like United States, Japan, Germany, make up a much smaller percentage of the world population, but use most of the world's resources. We are also responsible for producing most of the world's pollution and waste. If we look at just the data from the United States, we're just under 5% of the world population, but we use a fourth of the world's resources. So our per capita or per person resource use is much higher than many other countries. Looking at this map, we can see where the less economically developed countries are. Those are those in dark orange. So Central, South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. Where our more developed countries, United States, Canada, Europe, Northern Asia, Australia. Our more economically developed countries, or MEDCs, they are typically going to be more industrialized and have higher per capita GNP, or gross national product. United States, Japan, and Germany are three countries that together account for over half of the world's economic output. So that goes back to using those resources and producing the waste. Our less economically developed countries are going to have low to moderate industrialization, and they're going to use less resources per person, and they are going to produce less goods per person. And as we saw on the map where those were located, Africa, Asia, Latin America. Now, most of our world population growth does come from our less economically developed countries, but since they aren't using as many resources per person, it doesn't have as big of an impact. Gross national product, or GNP, is all of the goods and services produced by a country, and that would be annually or during a year. We can look at a specific number or ecological footprint that tells us how much land and water it takes to produce the resources to meet your needs in a year. And this is what we're going to do together in our next class period, is each of you are going to calculate your own ecological footprint. We can also determine the ecological footprint of a country or a town. In the U.S., it takes 9.7 hectares of land and water per person to produce the resources that you would need. India, it would be 0.8, so much smaller, because once again, that is a less economically developed country. To get an idea of what a hectare is, that's about 2.5 acres. Make sure that you answer the questions in the module. You might need to get the help of your parents. Questions like what's your household income, how many square footage, what are your energy sources. Look through that list, find the answers to those questions, because you are going to need that to complete the activity in class on Wednesday.